All right, so hello everyone. Thanks for joining us and welcome. My name is Marisaida Sanchez from Puerto Rico. I am a member of the Executive Committee of the International Union for Psychological Science, a moderator for this webinar, National Psychological Organizations, Foundations of Global Humanitarian Action in Crisis, organized by the IUPsyS. Today, we come together from different areas of the globe, sharing a common goal to help those in need after disasters. An important note for those who are joining us, there is an interpreter function in the Zoom meeting. You can find it in the tool menu. It looks like a globe icon, and it will translate from English to Turkish and from Turkish to English. Make sure to choose your language of preference on the toolbar under the interpretation globe icon. If at any point you need technical assistance, go to the chat section in the toolbar. One of our technical assistants folks will help you. Also, we have a question and answer session during the webinar. You can submit your questions using the Q&A tool in the toolbar. Please make sure to include the name of the panelist to whom you're asking the question. Now, I will give you a brief introduction of the organization hosting today's session. The International Union of Psychological Science works to be psychology's global voice. It was established in 1889 during the first International Congress of Psychology in Paris, and it has 82 member countries and represents over 1 million psychologists worldwide. Part of its mission is to promote the development of the science and professions of psychology and to exchange ideas between psychologists from different countries. IUPsyS works to develop international and regional networks to facilitate international and professional cooperation. Natural disasters and humanitarian crises can be very destructive, not only because of the lives that are lost, but because of the traumatizing effects in the community. The consequences of this kind of trauma can go unidentified and alter lives forever. Today, we will discuss how psychological organizations working in different crisis scenarios provide emergency mental health care and help in ways that go beyond mental health. Also, we will focus on a community that has been dealing with various disaster situations, and we will talk with members of organizations that have been working with disasters for decades to provide psychological help during critical moments. So now I would like to introduce Dr. Clara Swain, Executive Officer of the International Union of Psychological Science, who will share with you some opening remarks. Carl?
Thanks, Marisaida. Welcome on behalf of the Executive Committee of the International Union of Psychological Science to this historic webinar entitled National Psychological Organizations, Foundations of Global Humanitarian Action in Crises, the Case of Turkey. Firstly, we would like to extend our warm wishes and gratitude to our collaborators, our regional member, the European Federation of Psychologists Association, EFBAR, and our national member, the Turkish Psychological Association. Since its establishment, IUPsyS, the global voice of psychology, comprising 93 national members and 7 regional members, has contributed to managing crises in different places worldwide. It has done so through offering solidarity and direct support to leadership, supporting and participating in efforts with other organizations and various capacity building initiatives globally, most notably the Psychological Interventions After Disasters Workshop series. As a scientific organization, IUPsyS must consider how to promote knowledge production and applications, and from that perspective, address social and humanitarian events. In line with Pillar 1 of the current strategic plan, the Union is following a process to review and systematically develop our strategy for responding to current and future issues that lead to humanitarian crises. As noted in the announcement for this webinar, the importance of documenting and facilitating national psychology organizations' responses to crises was emphasized in a recent IUPsyS consultation exercise, the IUPsyS call for comments on policy on human crises. The imperative for action was further highlighted in the subsequent Psychological Science Diplomacy Forum with national, regional, and affiliate members. In February of this year, IUPsyS extended a message of solidarity and support to the people and communities in Turkey and Syria affected by the devastating impact following powerful earthquakes and multiple aftershocks in the bordering region. To this end, IUPsyS has collaborated with its regional member, FBAR, and national member, the TPA, to provide this webinar. The objectives are twofold: to highlight the significant contributions of national psychology organizations during periods of crisis, and to support the humanitarian efforts of the Turkish Psychological Association. In line with our mission, the development, representation, and advancement of psychology as a basic and applied science nationally, regionally, and internationally, IUPsyS recognizes the key expertise that our regional and national members have for dealing with crises within their own contexts. Our collective power is always one that will be stronger than individual action, and we hope this is a series of events that demonstrates collaboration between the Union, its regional members, and national members. As such, we look forward to hearing from other global representatives to highlight the centrality of psychology in crises, particularly emphasizing their organization's crisis work in the areas of policy, research, intervention, programming, collaboration, coordination, and training. To this end, we envision the sharing of knowledge amongst all participants and beyond, so that IUPsyS may further develop and refine its policy and activities on human crises and embrace its convening power in order to achieve its mission in the service of humanity. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Now I would like to introduce Robertas Povilaris, Executive Council member for the European Federation of Psychologists Association, who is also joining us today. Robertas?
Dear colleagues, I'm saying hello from Turkey, Ankara, the office of Turkish Psychological Association. I would like to say a few words on behalf of European Federation of Psychologists, European Federation of Psychologists Associations, the Executive Council. We are living in a very difficult and turbulent times. If we look into European region, so there is a huge devastating war taking place in Ukraine that Russia started. In Turkey, there was a huge earthquake happening this year, and we, as psychological communities around the world, I think we have an obligation to do and to share our knowledge. I'd like to thank International Union of Psychological Science for initiating, organizing this event. I think it's so important that to join forces when international and regional organizations are joining together and try to support national associations in their challenges. I would like to thank very much the Turkish Psychological Association for hosting meetings today and also hosting this webinar that we are having now. I would like also to express appreciation for Turkish psychologists who are working and dealing with the consequences of the earthquake and so, providing support to people who are needing these services. I would like also to congratulate Turkish Psychological Association for the award that they received, Act Human. This is the recognition of Turkish Psychological Association for the so important work that they are doing. Thank you very much, and I would wish a productive and interesting webinar today.
Thank you, Robertas, for your remarks. We would like to hear from the president of the Turkish Psychological Association, who is also with us today, Semsafak Kuruk.
Hello. Okay. I mean, first of all, I would like to thank International Union of the Psychological Science and EFA giving this great support, being with us and visiting us in Turkey. I mean, as a Turkish Psychological Association, the largest organization in Turkey, covering the most of the psychologists. And in the past, we have lots of psychological service in the different disasters. However, this earthquake, this disaster is very different because the scale is huge. According to United Nations demographics, almost 16 million people affected by this earthquake, and it is affected and felt at 11 cities. So last 3 months, I mean, we are, as a Turkish Psychological Association, our volunteers, I mean, we try to ease this problem. We try to cover some of the problem in the field. I mean, we are putting lots of effort to help the people, especially people with have special needs and people have some experience inequalities in the past. So like receiving support and seeing this union and EFA in here in Turkey really make our days, you know, like we are very grateful for their support. I mean, my friends in the later time is going to give details about what the Turkish Psychological Association do it in the region. So thank you very much again being with us. I mean, we need your emotional and other kind of support. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your remarks. Now we're gonna introduce our panel. We want to start a conversation, sharing different contributions psychological organizations can make during crisis. For that, we have with us representatives from 4 psychological associations working in different areas of the world. First, we have with us Jorge Enrique Torralbas from the Cuban Psychological Association. Hola, Jorge. Please.
Thank you. I would like to thank on behalf of the Cuban Psychological Society for the opportunity to participate in this webinar. At the same time, I would like to welcome this initiative, which is very important to facilitate the response of our organizations to different types of crises. And once again, I would like to send a warm embrace to our colleagues of the Turkish Psychological Association who are engaged in a major crisis response. I want to send a warm embrace to all of you. Next, please. Let us look initially of what's the notion of crisis that we share. First of all, crises are events outside the range of experience we go through on a daily basis. They can threaten people's physical and mental health and safety. And the most important of this concept is the fact that the definition of crisis has at its central axis the impact of individual and collective well-being. So the action of the organization linked to psychological sciences is essential. Next, please. What's the most important and severe crisis we have faced in Cuba in the last 5 years? Or a plane crash, tornado category EF4 in Havana, significant destruction of the infrastructure of 3 municipalities of the capital occurred in only 30 minutes. COVID pandemic, it was a worldwide event with hit us especially hard, not only because of the health crisis, but also because of the economic crisis that gradually has been more and more deep. Saratoga hotel explosion in Havana, a gas explosion in hotel left 47 people dead and many more injured. Fire at the supertanker base in the industrial zone of Matanzas. Numerous fatalities, especially among firefighters and other first response volunteers. Hurricane Ian, with significant damage to the entire housing fund and economic infrastructure of the western part of the country. Next, please. What have been our main lines of action in the face of these events? Activation, first of all, activation of volunteers together with psychology, professional of the health system of the country or on the affected territory. Next, taking into account that it's not possible to reach individually a part of the population, we have had a systematic presence in the mass media with orientation according to the different stage, preparation during the crisis and after, for the mitigation of the effect in the short, medium, or long term. Here it plays an important role to identify the different role of the different type of media, such as radio, which is very effective in rural areas or in during others hard conditions, for instance, the pass of the one hurricane. Next, in recent years, we have gained a much better understanding of the role of digital social network and their power in transmitting guidance and message. Thus, we have designed for a message for a specific networks, such as WhatsApp status, Facebook posts, small audios. These lightweight materials make it possible that even with connectivity difficulties, they can be consulted by the population, even in the midst of hurricanes. That is important because the first psychological help is provided by the population itself and not by a specialized service. Next. Education and training, even in some cases very quickly on psychological first aid. This is based on the principle that also emergency response is a specialty. This is not the patrimony of a group of professionals, but should be as extensive as possible to the entire professional community of psychology. The special attention next to a mental health professional with a space directed, especially to our colleagues more directly linked to the assistance in affected areas. Next, group field work, especially with children and their families in evacuation centers. It was essential to quickly identify the main effects and to provide simple tools for families. A fundamental objective is not to pathologize behavior that are to be expected in the crisis and that can progressively disappear. Basically, that they can identify what or when to be alarmed and seek professional help. Next, innovation in new ways of providing telepsychology service. During COVID pandemic, we designed a psychological counseling service through WhatsApp groups. And we use WhatsApp groups because of two essential conditions. The connectivity conditions were not good for other platforms, and because we consider the healing potential of groups. We create a theoretical and methodological tool for group work using WhatsApp groups with sessions for different audience, modern fathers, young people. And this has had variation, such as an individual psychological health service through WhatsApp chat after the hurricanes. In conclusion, we hope this presentation has been useful, and we are ready to continue the exchange, the active exchange with the principle of cooperation and solidarity. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Jorge, for such an interesting presentation. Hopefully, we'll have questions. Our audience will have questions for you in our Q&A session. Now we are gonna introduce Kazuhisa Takemura from Japanese Psychological Association, who previously recorded a presentation to share with us today.
Good afternoon. I'm Kazuhisa Takemura. I was working as a chair of the Disaster Research Support Committee of Japanese Psychological Association. And now I'm professor of the Waseda University. So I would like to explain Japanese Psychological Association's policy and the research efforts in disaster and crisis. So first of all, I would like to explain about the Japanese Psychological Association. The Japanese Psychological Association is a nationwide general society founded in 1927 for the purpose of promoting the progress and the dissemination of psychology. The association has approximately 8,200 members. The chairman of the board of directors is Professor Tsuneyuki Abe, and the former chairman of the board of directors, late Professor Takayuki Sakagami. As is official journals, the association published the journal Psychological Research in Japanese, Shinrigaku Kenkyu, and the English language journal, Japanese Psychological Research, as well as Psychological World, an educational and informational journal on psychology. In addition, the institute conducts projects such as certifying psychologists, conducting research and surveys, and holding public lecture and symposiums. Secondly, I would like to explain the Japanese Psychological Association policy for disasters and crises. On March 16th, 2011, immediately after Great East Japan earthquake struck, the society launched a page for the exchange of information. On March 26th, the Society Secretariat and Public Relations Committee issued a statement of the Board of Directors of the Japanese Psychological Association on the Great Tohoku Kanto earthquake, which clarifies the association's determination to actively engage in recovery from this complex disaster based on the knowledge of psychology. One of the major is to support research and practice for mid to long-term recovery. And the Great East Japan Earthquake Recovery Support Special Committee was established to materialize this. Thirdly, I would like to explain the support for the research and practice activities. The committee worked closely with the executive board of directors to determine how to provide grants. And in early April, the association issued a call for application for practical activities and research for recovery from the earthquake. Based on these discussions, the grant program was designed to support, first, practical activities such as psychological and social care for disaster victims. Second, practical research in disaster striking area and evacuation centers. And third, basic research aimed at gaining knowledge that will be useful for the disaster recovery. The committee narrowed down the number of applications from the 59, taking into consideration such as aspects as a balance among the three categories, such as activities in disaster striking areas, research in disaster striking areas, and basic research, indicated at the time of the call for application and ethical considerations, and finally selected 12 applications. Since then, research grants have continued to be provided, although the grant amounts have been gradually decreasing, and the list of the adaptive proposal is available on the website, following the website. And overall, many of the groups that have received grants have gone to the disaster-stricken areas to conduct practical activities. But some have also targeted residents who have evacuated to other areas or conducted research in areas far from the disaster zone. For example, on harmful rumors. In November 2021, the name of the Special Committee on Reconstruction Support for Great Earth Japan Earthquake was changed to Disaster Research Support Committee, and the committee was changed from a special committee to a standing committee. In April 2022, the name of the Practical Activity and Research for Disaster Recovery Grant changed to Research and Activity Contributing to a Disaster Reduction and Recovery. June 2022, organized session at the Safety Engineering Symposium was held by support of Science Council of Japan, Japanese government. So researchers who have received previous disaster recovery grants were asked to give lectures. So finally, as a brief self-introduction, my research is aimed at preventing worst-case decision-making in crisis situations. Our theoretical study and experimental and survey research have shown that making simple but quick decisions based on the attributes that are most valuable to decision maker lead to decisions that are relatively close to the best decisions and to prevent the worst decisions. We may know that the narrow-minded decisions are more likely to be taken, as evidenced by the COVID-19 disasters. So I hope that the psychologists around the world will do research to prevent the worst decisions from being made in a crisis. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Let's welcome Adnar Farah from the Jordanian Psychological Association to proceed with his presentation.
Okay, hello everyone. I am honored to be among highly respected colleagues from around the world, and it is my privilege to represent today the Jordanian Psychological Association in this webinar. For the event itself, we see it as extremely important because no exemptions or no exceptionalities in this regard for anyone or any country in the world. Crisis management is something very important, and the intervention at the time of crisis is very urgent to have, as planning and intervention strategies are all very important. Next. So for the Jordanian Psychological Association, just a few words to say in this regard. It's a leading organization in the region, and comparing to other organizations among Arab countries, this was a leading organization, was founded in 1995, and the majority of psychologists working in Jordan in education settings and in preparing and teaching in different psychology programs at different universities. And we have also many psychologists working in private sector. Next, please. In Jordan, although it is a small country in the Middle East, but we hosted many immigrations throughout the years, and starting from the Palestinians crisis to Iraqi crisis to Syrian crisis. We found ourselves in Jordan as psychologists are very challenged, and we had no other choice but to have different capacity building and different trainings so we can offer the best service to at the time of crisis to different populations, refugees and immigrants and so on. Next, please. But recently, for the last decade, the significant work for psychologists in Jordan was provided to Syrians after the Syrian war. And as probably we all know that over 1 million refugees, Syrian refugees, just came to Jordan after the war. And as a response from the Jordanian Psychological Association, we started implementing and designing, implementing and providing different intervention and training programs for psychologists so we can serve and provide psychosocial support to Syrians who are immigrated in Jordan. Next, please. But talking about these programs designed to provide refugees and Syrians and other refugees in Jordan, most of these took place in cooperation with the Ministry of Health in Jordan and also other NGOs, national NGOs in Jordan, such as Noor Hussein Foundation, the Jordan River Foundation, the Jordanian Clinical Psychology Association, and also Jordanian Association of Psychiatrists. Additionally, we can say that many international organizations, such as the World Health Organization and IMC, the International Medical Corps, and the IOM, the International Organization for Migration, were always, they took great partnership and great assistance to NGOs in Jordan. Next, please. On the other side, as we all witness around the world, the COVID-19 pandemic, it was also very challenging to psychologists in Jordan, and mental health and psychosocial support was provided and organized so we can be up to Jordanian inhabitants or citizens' expectations. So campaign was launched by the help of the Ministry of Health in Jordan to provide such support. Jordan also implemented a number of mental health and psychosocial support measures at the national level. These programs or intervention programs included mental health, psychosocial support interventions, where the Ministry of Health integrated such support and services into the primary health care in Jordan. Next, please. So mental health consultations and psychosocial support were offered to the public through two dedicated hotlines. The first hotline was established by the ministry itself, Ministry of Health, in cooperation with the Jordanian Association of Psychiatrists and the International Medical Corps. Next, please. So this hotline was maintained to offer help for 24/7 as psychosocial support and to provide referral and to support the needed person or the people who need such help. And it reached a large team of case managers and psychiatrists and psychologists in Jordan who were ready and who were prepared to provide help during the time of the pandemic. The second hotline was established by the Jordanian Psychological Association and the Jordanian Clinical Psychologist Association. And the hotline was working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. On daily basis to also to provide professional and specialized help for those who need psychological support. Next, please. All in all, we see that in Jordan, we were always challenged, and we try as much as we can to be organized and have the right intervention and the right time to respond to different crises. And this is recognized in different documentation and different publications that as related to crisis management at the time of crisis. And we strongly believe in our society, in our country, that a society is measured by how it cares for those who are unable to care for themselves. So we strongly believe that we have a duty to act and support others on national and international level in accordance with our culture and religious teaching of Islam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adnan, for your interesting presentation. Now we welcome our representative from the Pan-African Psychological Union, specifically from the Nigeria-Ethiopian region, Asefak Halel Selah. Could you please proceed with your presentation, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. This is Asafat, the immediate past president of EPA and executive board member of the Pan-African Psychology, that is a past executive member. So I'm going to present the foundation of global humanitarian action in crisis from the perspective of the Ethiopian Psychologists Association, EPA, and the Nigerian Psychologists Association, NPA. Next, please. EPA aspires to promote psychology as a profession to increase public awareness of its services and actively engage in the psychological health and welfare of its citizens and contribute to the economic and social development of the nation. Next, please. So in terms of intervention or programs, EPA provides psychosocial support for women and children in conflict-affected areas in collaboration with Ministry of Health and international agencies such as UNICEF and GIZ and universities and others, because as you may know, Ethiopia is in a challenge where many Ethiopians are displaced due to the conflict and war. So psychologists are really working on this area to support especially women and children. Next, please. So EPA actively involved during the COVID-19 crisis, which is also Ethiopia was affected, and really the society was a bit confused and stressed out. So we were like, EPA was directly involved in creating awareness in the medias and to calm the community and take care of themselves, and volunteers also, psychologists, volunteers in the emergency operation center during the COVID-19. Many young psychologists were directly involved, even risking their life because of the commitment they have for psychology. The other one is by developing also, we are involved with developing manuals for post-COVID-19 trauma and stress prevention and control, because we have to educate the community in different levels. Next, please. In terms of collaboration, EPA have a local and international collaborations. In terms of local, EPA collaborates with Addis Ababa University, which is the biggest university, especially in the School of Psychology regarding mental health. There are over 43 universities all over the nation. So promoting to open a school of psychology so that the more psychologists will be trained, in line with addressing the conflict and psychosocial support. Ministry of Health, also EPA is a member of the steering committee of the Mental Health Council in Ethiopia, which is that's happened during the COVID. EPA also tried its best to involve and to push, because psychological health is the one aspect of the mental health in Ethiopia. EPA works with the Ethiopian Psychiatric Association and UNICEF in training and psychological support during the COVID and also during this conflict situation in different parts of Ethiopia. Next, please. EPA also have an international collaboration, which is a member of the American Psychological Association, also signed a memorandum of understanding, collaborate with EPA so that we can more address at international level. Next. Regarding training and creating awareness, it is working with collaboration of the technical vocational training, which is most young people, students involved in this technical vocational training institutes regarding continuous professional development, that is CPD, by sending a volunteer psychologist to activate the service of the guidance and counseling service in the TVT, where most students are confused what to choose, how to do it, and also we contribute in this area. Next. So on the other hand, I'm also delighted to present in the respective of the Nigerian Psychological Association. NEPA is the highest professional regulatory body in Nigeria, responsible for the development and promotion and the application of psychology in the public interest, and coordinates training, research, and delivering of psychological services. Next. So NEPA also works on policy, that is masterminded the development of mental health psychological support from work through the Federal Ministry of Health in Nigeria, stakeholders like International Organization for Migration and Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria. Next. In terms of research, NEPA is also active in doing research. Next, please. In view of the pressure of crisis towards research outputs are available from the Nigerian Psychological Association. NUPA is developing a research infrastructure to document experiences, interventions, outcomes, and lessons learned in the area of psychology. Next. So in terms of interventions and programs, NUPA has, for strategic reasons, NUPA provides consultancy services in crisis hidden areas through the Ministry of Health, Humanitarian Affairs, Women, and Social Development. The association also solicits vacancies through human resource development of international development agencies like UNDP, WHO, and ICRC, and others. Next, please. NUPA also have a collaboration to ensure large-scale availability of psychological services. NUPA has encouraged its members to form NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that negotiate direct contact with the government agencies, such as the National Emergency Management Agency, the Northeast Development Commission, Niger Delta Development Commission, and IDS. Next. NUPA is also involved in training. A critical mass of graduate psychologists have been trained by NUPA through its divisions like the Nigerian Association of Counseling Psychologists, the Nigerian Association of Clinical Psychology for skills development, intervention, research, and consulting. Next. So these are the major activities to address the crisis in Nigeria and in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asfa, for your presentation. Now we would like to open the forum for questions for this segment. Anybody who wants to ask our presenters questions? You could do so now using the Q&A function. Any questions for our presenters? Or comments?
In the meantime, Marisaida, I want to tell our attendees that we have placed in the chat for their benefit the information from our Japanese colleagues that we were unable to present given the audio technical difficulties. So they are attendees should be able to download that document and check and review the information that they send us.
Thank you, Ricardo. Yes, I just saw it. So there's the downloadable version of the presentation from Japan for your benefit. Any questions or comments for our presenters? If not, we're going to have another segment after the next presentation. So now we want to hear from our Turkish Psychological Association colleagues. This is an organization that has been dealing with a devastating situation for the last couple of months, but has also been working with different disaster crises for more than 40 years. For that, I want to introduce Saylin Taken from the Turkish Psychological Association, trainer, disaster and emergencies coordination group. So if our Turkish colleagues could go ahead and proceed with your presentation.
Yes, can you now hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. And first of all, I will, of course, start saying thank you to you all. I know, you hear it a lot, but it is not the template of what we need to say. This is how we feel in Turkish Psychological Association. We really are happy to see you all. We have people from International Union of Psychological Science and European Federation of Psychological Association over here, and we have all of you overseas, and which means a lot to us. I mean it. And thanks for being here, and thanks for your time to listen to us today. And I will start talking about what we have been I will basically talk about what we have been doing with TPA since the earthquake. So first of all, if we start talking about psychosocial support, whenever we talk about psychosocial support, we in the aftermath of a disaster, we always consider this support in terms of the traumatic situation, the people or the individuals who experience trauma. However, besides that, in Turkish Psychological Association, we consider disaster as a social phenomenon, devastating social phenomena which disrupt the social life of group of people. So in the community-based perspective, psychosocial support, we consider what's up. We consider, sorry, I have people around here too. And we consider disaster, we build our psychosocial strategies. So we consider our psychosocial strategies with a community-based approach. We consider people, a group of people who experience a devastating event in the same time at the same place. And also in the systemic perspective, we know that different sections of communities experience disasters disproportionately, like lower socioeconomic level people or disadvantaged people, and we can extend this group, as you might know. So we can continue.
Next slide, please.
We can, next slide, please. Yes. Thank you. And on the 6th of February 2023, there were two big earthquakes, and one of them, both of them happened in the same place, in the same city, in different villages. The centers were different villages. One of them was in Pazarcık with a 7.8 magnitude, and the other one happened in Ekinözü with a 7.5 magnitude. And in Turkey, it affected very large area, as you can see in the slide. So in Turkey, over 50,000 people lost their lives. In Syria, over 8,000 people lost their lives. And in total, 120,000 people were injured and many more traumatized. Many buildings, roads, bridges were collapsed. And as I said again, in that area specifically is a very diverse area. It's the center of diversity basically in Turkey, which is the beautiful thing in that area. However, we also see how different groups, different sections were affected in unequally, basically. So more than 4 million people also migrate to other cities from like the cities where they don't experience the disaster, and more than 1,000 psychologists lost their lives. And in government bodies and also non-government organizations, the number of mental health services have been insufficient, unfortunately. You can continue. So we support, as soon as the earthquake happened, we were like, starting from the first week, we were in the area with Turkish Psychological Association. I will call it TPA after this time, after this slide. And we provided support in different levels. One of them is individual level. Basically, once when we first arrive in the area, we try to reach people who already has the mental health conditions. Basically, we try to reach people who already has the mental health conditions. And at the beginning, in the first week, we reached out 240 individuals who needed individual counseling sessions, basically. And by the end of 6 months, we are planning to reach 1,500 people. And in the individual level, we basically in the area, we have tent yards and container yards. We are visiting every single container and every single tent since like every week, every week, and we try to assess what kind of needs people have. And specific for women and children, we are trying to understand what kind of support we can provide to this population.
So it is still early to diagnose PTSD, like to understand if people show PTSD symptoms. However, we are trying to reach the risky population who have this risk of having or showing PTSD symptoms, basically. We can continue.
Celine, if you could get closer to your microphone, I think we are losing your audio. Now we can hear you better.
Can you hear? Okay, then. I didn't know that my audio was connected to my earphone. Anyways, so in the community level, we are setting up community gathering events with the people who live in the specific area, and also people who migrated to other cities, basically. And we are trying to reach teenagers, for example. Like we set up our groups, like community gatherings, specifically for the age group or gender groups, for women, for pregnant women, for teenagers, for children. And also we have specific program, which is called Supporting the Supporters program. We basically not only with the people who are directly affected by the earthquake. However, we also support people who are working for these people. For example, we are coordinating with the Ministry of the employees of Ministry of Family and Social Services, and employees from this ministry have been working in the area even before the earthquake. Therefore, they have been the people who were also affected by the earthquake. That's why we also provide support, like about overcoming distress or overcoming burnout, etc. Also, we have a program called, we are working with people who has the program with Red Pencil, which is training the trainers who can support people with an art therapy. So we have a trainer who provides support for art therapy. And we are basically training people who are interested in providing art therapy to affected areas. We can continue. And before, we are working with volunteers. Every week, we let 7 to 14 volunteers in the area. We mainly let our volunteers be in there in 5 main cities. I will talk about the cities in a little bit. But before we let our volunteers go to the area, we train them. And with the training approach, we we take clinical approach and social psychological approach basically. At the beginning, in our trainings with clinical psychology approach, we talk about understanding response after trauma, psychological first aid after disasters, supporting the ones who experience a loss, and working with children and adolescents who experience trauma, basically. And with the social psychology approach, we meet every volunteer groups every week, and we talk about how disasters are a social phenomenon and how we need to understand the culture. What kind of culture does these specific places have, and how they can support by respecting people's culture. We talk about ethics in the field and shared motivations and aims to achieve common goals. And what does working as a team and how working as a team contributes to our support strategies, basically. We can continue. And so how our support system started at the beginning, we basically, when the earthquake happened, we reached out psychologists all over Turkey in different cities, and we set up a Zoom meeting around over 80 people. And we decided to, we basically did a brainstorm session and decided how many people can go to the area and how many people can, which people can go to the area, which people can be our first group who can create risk assessments and needs assessments, basically. And we sent 5 volunteers and experts in the area, and they created the connections, necessary connections with different non-government organizations and with government bodies. And according to their reports and according to their observations, we created an application form, and we made it available. We made our application form available online, and we received 8,000 applications at the beginning. Later, we organized these applications according to the expertise of people and what are the needs in the fields. And we basically wanted to match people's, our volunteers' expertise with the needs in the specific area, basically. And we organized these trainings that I talked about a bit ago, like with a clinical psychological approach and social psychological approach. And we can continue. Currently, like since the beginning of the earthquake, we can continue. Can we continue? Next slide. Yes, thank you. And since the beginning, which means like we are in the area, like supporting people who are affected by the earthquake. And we create orientation sessions every week and assign every single volunteers according to the needs of the area. Like what kind, for example, in some places, we still need to provide some, like we need to provide like group sessions. Group sessions are important, for example, psychoeducations about privacy and personal space or hygiene, or meeting with adolescents about their exams or overcoming distress, etc. However, in some specific places, for example, container yards need more individual-based support. So according to the expertise, according to the skills of our volunteers, we basically match with the spaces and the volunteers, and then we allow them to go to the area. And every single week, we renew our working plan. The reason is that the area is still active. It's still dynamic. For example, the earthquake happened, but in 1 month ago, there was a hurricane, or before that hurricane, 2 weeks before that hurricane, there were flood were happening. So needs are still changing in the area. Therefore, every week, when we send our volunteers, we ask them to create a report, and we ask them to come up with the current needs, or like what kind of needs the people are going to have for the upcoming week, basically. We can continue. So for the achievements, I am so we basic in the area, in the specific places that we went. Hatay, Adıyaman, Gaziantep, and Kahramanmaraş are the 4 main cities who are primarily affected by the earthquake. So by this time in Hatay, in total, we reached out 2,517 people. I am giving the total numbers right now because I'm aware of the time. So in Adıyaman, we reached out 595 people by now. In Gaziantep, we have 2 places. One of them is Islahiye, the other one is Nurda, and we in total, they are the kind of the villages belong to this city. And in total, we reached out 1,500 people. In Kahramanmaraş, this is the center of the earthquake, and in total, we reached out 472 people. Also, in the cities that didn't experience the disaster, that didn't experience the earthquake, we also worked with the people, with the volunteers who are working in 10 different cities. Time is over, but I have to continue. I'm sorry. Can I? Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So we have 10 more cities that we are also helping. That our volunteers are also helping. So we can continue on this slide. We still have current needs in the area. For example, language barrier between refugee families and our professional supporters is a big barrier, and we are trying to find support and find sources to meet their needs as well. Thank you. And also structured psychological support for, as I said, immigrant and refugees families is needed because we still need the people who actually know the language, like Arabic language, for example, and we need professionals. We can continue to other slides, I guess. So we are asking for fundings, and besides emotional support and besides besides the solidarity, which means huge to us, we also need funding currently, because we have 2 field coordinators in the area, but area is so big and we need more professional field coordinators in the area, and we basically plan to hire more people. Also, all of our volunteers, all of the people who have been in the area were volunteers, work in the area voluntarily. However, right now the numbers are dropping. Therefore, we are considering turning to semi-volunteering process right now, if we can make it possible. There are places, as I said before, there are tent yards and container yards, and we are managing our work, helping people or supporting people in that area. However, there are some people who can't live in tent yards or container yards because they have their gardens, farms, animals, so they can't move from their houses, but they still need psychosocial support. Therefore, we need cars or caravans or vans to reach these people directly, to reach their communities directly, because they can't come to or they're living in rural areas, so they can't come to the city centers most of the time. So we need to reach these people by being mobile, and we are planning to make it. And long-lasting, sustainable prevention and intervention programs are needed. Therefore, we are trying to train professionals specifically for that earthquake area. Then they can go there, and we can maybe hire them, or maybe we can pay their expenses when they are in that area. We can continue. So this is the summary. TPA has been in the area since the beginning, and we have all of our works have been voluntarily happening, and we thank our volunteers so much, and they have been very hardworking group of people and very considerate people. And we have this pragmatic approach. We are considering the needs of the area And we are considering this bottom-up approach with for a collective recovery, basically. Not only individual support, but we also have this community-based approach. However, our sources are limited, and our programs, like our support, is going to continue. We plan to continue our support at least 1 year, but probably it's going to be more than 1 year. Therefore, we are going to have material source. We are going to need material sources to make our support sustainable. I get so excited, and I'm sorry. Thank you so much for showing solidarity to all of you. And yeah, that's it. This is us.
Thank you so much, Celine. We want to dedicate a moment for questions from the audience regarding the work that the Turkish Psychological Association is doing. So please, if you have comments or questions, this is the time. We could entertain them through the Q&A function. And I wanted to start with a question. We have been watching in the news that, you're going through an election process right now in Turkey. How has been your experience coming from a country where we also had a natural disaster post-Hurricane Maria? We had the longest blackout in the history of the world, a whole year without power. And we know how, the recovery and disaster processes might be affected by political changes. How has been your experience regarding this?
I mean, shall I start or shall I let Jem to start, or had to start? Well, I mean, I'm working with disasters since, like, I did my PhD with disaster communities, basically, and it is always the case that people who experience disasters are also affected by the political change a lot, are also affected by, like, tagging, for example. So I think it affected these communities, like disaster communities, negatively. This election process affected these communities negatively. The reason is that so many people, like, not so many people, but some people blamed these people for the results of the election, etc. So we kind of, this is very sad that they have been the scapegoats. However, I mean, this is what we are also trying to deal with as psychologists. This is my observations, and I will leave the word to Jem.
I might add some more information. Like in the election, we have 2 votes. One is for the president, one is for parliament. I mean, the first part for the presidency didn't finish because, I mean, the candidate should receive the 50% of all of the votes. So 15 days later, we have another election for the presidency. And when we look at the participation, I mean, in Turkey, generally we have very high participation in the voting process. Like in this election, we have participation is close to 90%. But in the election area, the participation rate above 80%. So 10% is lower than the rest of the Turkey, because as Selin talked about, some people are migrate to other cities, so they didn't register for the voting process. But the important things is, as Selin is indicated, like there are lots of volunteer groups in that region, and they are kind of anti or against the current political power in Turkey. So because they couldn't get the results, so people start to blame, like under this very severe condition, how you support the current power. So there are some people are blaming the people who affected from the earthquake, because they generally didn't change their voting style. I mean, they still support the current political power. So, as Selin indicated, like probably we will have some hard time because maybe some of the volunteers will stop going there, like, but I think it's a very injustice because we are not in that region for some political reason. We are there for the people who need help. So probably as a Turkish Psychological Association, we will start a campaign, like the increasing the like being volunteer is more important, like you can have a different opinion, you can have a different political preferences. I mean, but we are here because we do not make any discrimination, like, I mean, our assessment based on the needs. I mean, we don't care about the people, ethnic background, political preferences. But probably 15 days, we still have some hot debates about that region. Yep.
Thank you for your comments. Any other questions or comments that we want to share with our colleagues from the Turkish Psychological Association?
I have a concern. This is Adnan from Jordanian Psychological Association. As I heard our colleague, Dr. Selin, presenting, and an issue was raised that the need still exists for probably recruiting specialized psychologists to provide help, especially Arabic-speaking psychologists. It's just to mention, I think I have organized, or the IUPsyS organized different efforts in this regard in the region. And in few days in Amman, Jordan, we will be meeting with some colleagues in the Jordanian Psychological Association, along with other partners, so we can organize such effort. So my concern here, the need still exists, just to make sure to have some psychologists to provide help for some areas, or for those Arabic-speaking populations in the area affected by the disasters.
I mean, yes, we still have a need about bilingual or people with the native language of the Arabic. I mean, we have psychologists, I mean, who is the bilingual, like they can speak Turkish, Arabic, or they can speak Turkish or Kurdish. But transferring them in that region is also difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, so because, like, that time, I mean, maybe they are not so volunteer. I mean, we have to provide some financial support. But of course, like Jordanian Psychological Association or Arab Psychological Association might be helpful in that area, because like it is kind of, we have to get international, like acceptance to do that, because like the visa and the other things. But I am very grateful, like we can talk about. Also, like it's not mentioned in the slides. I mean, probably within the weeks, we will start the online sport. Maybe in the online sport, those whose native language is Arabic may be helpful, because that time you don't have to cross the border, or you don't take the approval of the governments, because we can provide online sport people who have like only speak the Arabic. Because as Selin mentioned, it is, I mean, especially the earthquake area is very close to Syrian region. border.
Yes.
And probably in the east cities of that earthquake area, almost 20% of people are immigrants. And most of them is Syrian and Arab origin. So this is very important to reach the immigrants in this process, because they already have lots of negative experience, like because of the crisis in the Syria, internal war in the Syria, and also moving to Turkey, which create lots of difficult problems, and especially people who stay in the earthquake area is in the low income, because people who have the Arabic origin, like Syrian, and if they have some financial support, generally they prefer to big cities in Turkey, not that region. So they are also have problem to reach the mental health services. So we will appreciate your support in this one. But again, we have bilingual, but transfer to the bilingual in that area is difficult. Also, like for the online support, it will be very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's wonderful to hear that there might be some support between these two associations. I think I saw a hand, but then it went down from Belize. Do you have a question or a comment? So hopefully this will be, this session will help get more collaboration between nearby associations, and of course from the union at large. Now I want to invite the president of the International Union of Psychological Sciences, Dr. Germán Gutiérrez, to share an important message with the group. Germán?
Well, thank you so much, Marisaida. Before I give you some words, I would like to present a video. So I'll be with you in just a few minutes.
Herkes kendi başına çıkmaya çalışıyor. Arabalar aynı şekilde. Burası.
Öğretmen Evi ve Cumhuriyet Caddesi. Yol komple kapalı.
thank you so much, all of you, for your participation in this webinar. Modern psychology was introduced in Turkey in 1915, when the first chair at Istanbul University was inaugurated. Since then, psychology has become a vibrant, socially relevant discipline and profession in the country. For a long time, it has contributed to solving many social issues, including managing crises resulting from natural and human-made disasters. Most recently, the efforts of psychology, including those of organized psychology during the COVID-19 pandemic and the devastating earthquake, have demonstrated psychology's commitment to their society and humanity as a whole. As Dr. Swain mentioned at the beginning of this session, IUPsyS has traditionally placed itself in solidarity and has offered support in situations where our national members have experienced distress under crisis. That has been the case in Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, and other regions, and these actions have been extended elsewhere. We now want to build a systematic strategy to respond more effectively in similar situations in collaboration with our national and regional members, and we want to promote synergic action with our affiliate members. We feel very proud of our membership, of our members' achievements in dealing with critical situations. We want to contribute to the recognition by governments, other disciplines and organizations, and civil society as a whole of those achievements, so these efforts receive further support for everyone's benefit. As a behavioral science, psychology builds interventions and strategic actions based on evidence. That and its humanitarian principles are vital pillars of our profession and contribute to its growing appeal worldwide. Psychology's contributions in crisis extend well beyond supportive actions for mental health. Multiple areas of psychology can contribute to those efforts, and we desire to make those contributions known. Today, I want to thank the Turkish Psychological Society for the warm welcome, and more importantly, humanitarian action for those who need support in very hard times. We have been very impressed by their commitment and quality of work, the work that they are doing with victims of the earthquake who are socially vulnerable. Like the Turkish Psychological Association, other organizations of psychology worldwide have stood up in times of crisis and combined scientific knowledge and humanitarian principles for the betterment of humanity. These examples are imaginative, well-grounded, and realistic. I now want to officially launch the global call for assistance for the Turkish Psychological Association to support their scientific and humanitarian actions. IUPsyS will coordinate the support from other regional organizations like the European Federation of Psychology Associations and our national members, and encourage synergic efforts with psychologists from Turkey. We are also renewing our efforts to provide similar support for other countries in need when our capacity and interaction with national members facilitate those actions. In addition to this initiative, IUPsyS is developing a program of fast responses to countries in need and a longer-term response through our task force on psychological science diplomacy, seeking to develop a framework for action that serves our mission as a scientific organization whose establishment clearly intended to tend bridges among nations and communities, despite the difficult times they experience during crises resulting from natural and human-made disasters. Thank you so much for this initiative. I encourage you to spread the word on it, and we are sure that it will be a great success. The tremendous effort, the tremendous work that our colleagues from the Turkish Psychological Association are doing very well deserves our support, as Selin said a few minutes ago. Thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you, Herman, for those words. Finally, we want to ask Asli Gonkun Konse, Vice President of the Turkish Psychological Association, for some final remarks. Asli?
Hello, thank you all, but Okay, I need to share my screen first. Well, we are in the vote of thanks now. First of all, we would like to thank the International Union of Psychological Science for making this meeting real and hearing our voice. I would like to thank Herman, Eva, and Carl for being here. We would like to thank EFPA and Roberta's for being here. We would like to thank APA for their financial and psychological support, and we would like to thank the Turkish philanthropy funds for their financial support also. Also, we have a project with Red Pencil, and they are giving art therapy to our volunteer psychologists who are providing psychosocial support to those who are affected by the earthquake. And we also thank the Ministry of Family and Social Policies in Turkey for coordinating our actions and providing us some of the locational support. But our biggest thank is to our volunteer psychologists who are sacrificing too much to serve those who are affected by the earthquake since the beginning of this disaster, since it happened. And of course, I would like to thank my colleagues. I am very proud of to be a part of the team of Turkish Psychological Association right now. I would like to thank my colleagues in here board. But I need to also, while thanking to you all, I need to also show our situation here. We had donations from APA and Turkish philanthropy funds up to now, in total more than $50,000. But in the last 3 months, we had to spend almost $20,000 of this. And you can see our expenses like personal salaries, transportation expenses that for volunteer psychologists who go to the area, and other expenses such as water, electricity in our containers. And we also want to serve in the earthquake area for 15 months more. Maybe more, we don't know. It's up to the funds we are going to receive. In total, we need personal salaries, transportation expenses, and also Celine told us that we are going to go to a semi-volunteer system where we are going to pay some money to our volunteers. And we want to buy 2 caravans because the area is so big, including 11 cities, and we need to be mobile. And we have other expenses, and we need more than $200,000. But funding left right now is $30,000. So we need almost $200,000 more, and we need international donations right now. I would like to thank you all for being here again, and we thank all associations in other countries in advance for solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Asli, for your call for support. Very important. It's important to emphasize that all of us are here with a shared common goal, a common interest to find and contribute to the well-being of people around the world. So we are happy to accompany you in this process from the union, and thank to all the participants for being with us today. So we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much.